Hello, Bedford. Welcome to Candidates Corner. I'm Sue Mullen, your host for today's episode, and with me today is Catherine Rombeau, who is a candidate for Hillsborough District 7 State Representative. Welcome, Catherine. It's
Nice
good to see you again.
You too, Sue. Thanks.
So, Catherine, it's been months since I interviewed you the last time.
Yes.
But I do think that some of the information that we covered in your original interview for BCTV bears repeating for those members of our audience that have not had an opportunity to meet you or to view that fabulous original interview. So I'm going to ask you some repetitive questions, and I hope you're okay with that.
Of course.
All right, so let's start with your background. Many people may recognize you as a member of Bedford's Town Council. But I bet you most people can't tell you where you came from or how you arrived in Bedford or any of those things. So why don't we start with that? Tell me a little bit about where you were born and your background.
Sure. I am from Connecticut. I was born in Massachusetts, but from Connecticut mostly, and my family is still there. I grew up there. I grew up in a town called Madison that is has a lot of similarities to Bedford, I think, in certain ways. And so that was probably one of the things that resonated for me when we came up this way. But I went to college in Massachusetts. I went to Amherst College and met my husband Charlie after law school. We were both in Philadelphia working and decided to come back up to New England to be closer to family and for job opportunities. And
okay, let me stop you there for just 1 second. Roll back to your childhood a little bit.
Okay.
Your mom, your dad, siblings, what did that look like?
So my brother is a teacher in Connecticut still.
Okay, good.
Yep, he is a few years younger than me, and he teaches history and Spanish and coaches. And my parents, my dad's a retired FBI agent. My mom was a customer service rep and worked in the town where I grew up for many years, and they are still there. So they've been there
Both
40 years.
Retired at this point?
Mostly. They keep their
Okay.
hands, and they're still working a little bit, but getting there.
Okay, so you went to Amherst College.
I did.
Majoring in?
English and French, humanities.
English and
yes,
French. Okay.
I don't use the French as much anymore.
Well, you are in New Hampshire.
That's true. I get a chance every so often, you know. But largely, I think it was a sort of critical studies type experience.
Right.
And it was a great education. I had a wonderful time there. I got to play ice hockey, and
Really?
I did.
Okay.
I played ice hockey, not particularly well, but with great enthusiasm.
That's okay.
After that, I actually spent a year teaching abroad in Greece after I graduated from college. And then
Did you teach English?
I did teach
or-
English,
okay.
yes, at a Greek school that had Greek and American faculty. And then
Charlie
came
waited
back.
for you?
Charlie did not know me then.
Okay.
That's right. We did not meet until after law school.
Okay.
And we were both clerking for judges in Philadelphia when we met.
So you came back from Greece and decided that you were going to go to law school.
Yeah, I worked in New York a little bit and then went to law school.
All right.
In New York,
At
at NYU.
Right. Okay. And then Charlie came on the scene.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I moved
Okay.
to Philadelphia to clerk for a judge, and then I met him there.
All right.
And so we both worked there for several years. Started our family there, and then when the kids were very young, moved up to Connecticut briefly by my family for a little while, and then made our way up here because Charlie had an opportunity to pursue his dream job as a prosecutor, and I practiced employment law and was working for a firm that allowed me to move my job up here with me. I work remotely, so all the pieces came together, and we came to New Hampshire.
So you alluded to starting your family when you were in Philadelphia.
Yes,
That family includes 2 adorable little girls.
mostly adorable.
Tell me a little something about them.
My daughter Eleanor will be 8 in 2 weeks. She could tell me the number of days off the top of her head, I'm sure. My daughter Audrey is 5.5 and just lost her second tooth yesterday, so it's
Ooh.
been an exciting week in our
Big
house.
doings
Yep.
in the Rombeau house.
They're both at Riddlebrook School, so it's been exciting to be part of the school experience in Bedford now for both of them. And yeah, they moved a couple times in a couple years, but it's been nice to be settled here now for a while.
Why did you decide on Bedford?
So we were up here looking around because Charlie had the job opportunity, and we had a fairly narrow window of time to consider different communities. And like many families I know here, we wanted a town or a community that had a good school district. That was important to us. We were both lucky to have
Right.
good experiences educationally growing up, and Bedford obviously jumped out as one of the lead contenders for that. And there are several good districts in the state, but this was a perfect fit for us in terms of working in Concord, which is where Charlie works, but also being a community that was had a lot of resources, had a lot of activity, had a lot of sports, arts,
Sort of
activity, things for the
family
kids.
friendly.
Exactly. They're beautiful outdoor spaces, but also activities for all of us as a family and proximity to access other opportunities too. So.
I understand the girls have become part of the competitive soccer league.
Yes, they are playing soccer this fall. It's really neat to feel yourself become part of the community more as your kids start to get more involved in the activities. And as we've been doing meet and greets for the campaign, and as I've been meeting more people, I'm having the very pleasant problem of not always remembering if I've met somebody from soccer, or if I met them from volunteering at school, or if I've met them from Girl Scouts, or I've met them from campaigning or town council or
Okay,
meetings.
so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's great.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Terrific.
really nice.
So we know that you're a lawyer. Yeah. We know that you're currently on the town council.
Correct.
Give me your take on what kinds of things, what sort of skill set you might be currently utilizing as either an attorney or on the town council that you feel makes you a good candidate for state legislature.
That's a good question. I think that there are a couple of different things that serve me well. I'm an employment attorney. I do management side, employment litigation. A lot of what I do for my job involves analyzing legislation, considering contractual negotiations in terms of employment separation, and I do a lot of parsing through language and trying to anticipate unintended consequences of laws and employment decisions. And I think a lot about the ways that people are often trying to do the right thing in their place of work, whether it's supervising or being supervised, and it doesn't always go the way we want it to go. And how do we mitigate those situations? How do we help people be better employees? How do we help them be better managers and supervisors? All of which is to say, I think those things serve me well and town council too, because we obviously spend a lot of time considering contractual obligations or opportunities. We spend a lot of time talking about regulations that would impact us at a local level in terms of changes locally or where we would like to see the state go. So I think that sort of literacy, I guess, if you will, is useful.
Would you describe yourself as being detail-oriented?
I try. I would, yes.
Because I would describe
yes,
you
I
as
think
being
that I
detail-oriented.
am. But I also think the piece of that that's an important thing is process-based as well, in that I think I spend a lot of time trying to think about both sides of issues,
Right.
regardless of whether I'm advocating for a particular side. But I think it makes me fairly measured. And so I think that helps in a government, legislative or town council executive position, and to not be quick to jump to conclusions and to try to play out how what might seem like the right solution in a given moment, if you play out 5 steps ahead, might not be the right solution for the community.
Right. So you would bring that to the State House readily and easily, having the number of years in practice that you have now.
I think so. Yeah, that's the upside of getting older, right? You have more and more perspective on.
Did you just point at me when you said
No.
getting older? I think
No,
you did.
I meant us sharing getting older.
Okay, all right, just checking.
No.
Just checking.
Yeah, and one of the things about town council that's been very gratifying is that it has been nonpartisan. It is nonpartisan. You don't run with a party affiliation, and I think it has really fostered, or at its best, really fosters problem solving that is not ideological or agenda driven. Many of us on the council have very different, political opinions out in the world, I'm sure, but we don't bring that to our projects and to our efforts.
You and I have had conversation about the fact that when you're involved in things in town, that it's really very bipartisan, because the town council really is a collaboration between people of many different opinions.
Yep.
I think we need some of that in the State House.
I agree, and so I think that's a little bit bred into me at this point. And so I like to bring that to the state. I think that coming at the work from that perspective, that folks on both sides or any side of the aisle can have productive problem-solving ideas, creative solutions to what can seem like real deep-rooted problems is productive.
Right. And what do they say the definition of compromise is? Where both parties get something, but neither party gets everything.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also think about when I think about compromise. My father-in-law at our wedding, actually, in his toast, stayed with me all these years, made some sort of comment about how marriage was not about compromise so much as consensus, and I thought that was powerful. That sometimes compromise, everyone walks away feeling like they didn't get what they want. That happens a lot in legal situations, the settlements, and everything. But I think consensus building is a really important way to approach it. That if all parties feel like they have a stake and they have a voice in the solution.
Well, I have been watching you work very hard throughout this campaign, and I'm anxious to have an opportunity to talk to Charlie after the campaign is over to see how that consensus building worked in the Rombeau household. Yeah. Okay, I want to turn serious for a minute. I have spent some time on your website and looked at the broad areas of interest that you have put forth as areas that you would like to focus on. So smart fiscal planning is one of the things that you have said that you feel that you are both interested in and able to be a part of. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, it relates in many ways to my town council experience. I think a lot of partisan fighting over budgets, over planning, we lose sight of the fact that a lot of smart financial decisions is about planning and about planning ahead, and that you can't put off certain projects, whether it's road work, bridges, infrastructure, that they have to be planned. There has to be periods of time where you're set to make different changes, and that it doesn't mean necessarily spending more money, or sometimes it means spending money at the outset that has longer term improvements. So I think in particular of energy efficient type improvements to infrastructure, that sometimes there's outset there, but that reaps tremendous financial benefits or dividends later. So it's something I want to keep in mind going forward. If I have the opportunity to serve in the House, how can we make smart decisions from an energy perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, from a funding liability, or pensions and contract negotiations, just keeping the long-term picture in mind.
Well, and I think it's important, as somebody whose primary interest as a candidate is human services, I need someone like you to look at the numbers when we're putting forth proposals and say, okay, well, option A is going to look like this kind of commitment. Option B would look like that. And so I think that there is a place for a wide number of viewpoints and interests. And I think it's important that we sort of look at all sides of an issue, and you're
not
good
make
at
it
that.
party driven. I mean, I'm very grateful that a number of people in town have taken time with me to sit down and talk about concerns for budget priorities for locally at the town level or at the state level going forward if I'm involved in those discussions. And I learn a lot. None of us go into any of these positions knowing everything. We have a lot of self-educating to do, and when you can lean on your community to help bring their expertise to the table, it's really, really helpful.
So the second area you've identified is protecting your neighbors, which I think primarily we're looking at waste and energy and water and fuels
and I
those
guess
kinds of things.
All these things overlap, right? And protecting your neighbors is a broad title or a broad category. But one of the things I have talked about a lot during this campaign is as an example, is the water contamination issues that we have been experiencing and dealing with in Bedford and a number of neighborhoods that have been on bottled water for years. And right now the roads, actually we are underway getting water brought in to those neighborhoods and all Back River Road, and the roads being torn up. So we are making progress. But when I say we, what's challenging is that the town does not manage that solution. The town does not manage what is considered contaminated water. The town does not negotiate a resolution with any entity that might be involved in contributing to the contamination. Do you think
residents realize that the town does not have that decision-making
You know
capacity?
what? I think there are a lot of really educated residents at this point, actually, in town, which I appreciate too, because there has been tremendous commitment to a number by many neighbors to really be present at the meetings with the state, to get the word out, to share their information with the town. And again, that's I'm grateful for that because sometimes it really does take a village. And it has highlighted for me some of the challenges of the town wanting to be proactive, wanting to fix a situation for our neighbors that is not safe and is not tenable, but only being in almost an advisory position sometimes to encourage the state. So that would be a priority for me at the State House in terms of examining standards and enforcement mechanisms.
Well, I'd be happy to have you representing us there. Talk to me about schools.
Well, I have two kids in the schools. Obviously, that was a priority for us moving here. And I think it was a draw for many, many families here. And then there are many families who have been here a long time, like you have, and have seen such tremendous change in the education system here, you know, with the high school coming in and how much that has changed. I think schools in a town like Bedford especially are such an important unifying force in the community, especially when you don't have a downtown or, you know, that sort of central, the schools bring so many people together. Even folks whose kids are long gone from the schools, it's what keeps the community thriving in many ways. You and I have talked, I know too, that sometimes it's easy to forget if your kids are out of the schools, you know, it doesn't affect you in this, or you think that your investment or engagement with the schools maybe is not as crucial anymore. But as we've talked about, because everyone supporting and investing in our schools means so much to the community's continued well-being, I think we need to keep that in mind in terms of the tax impact. But a piece of that too, I know a lot of folks are talking lately about, you know, they're trying to balance growth in Bedford, and that it has such a draw to so many families. How do we balance that? How do we not grow too much, or what is the right way to grow, or these questions everybody's asking? And so when I've been out campaigning, so many of the questions I get are my town council hat. They're not my state rep candidate hat, which is fine. It's great to talk to folks about it. But I've been thinking more recently about how that actually does tie into the state level. Bedford's district for the State House is just Bedford. So us running in this race, we are thinking about our community's concerns. But that is all tied to the state's concern, the communities around the state, because we want other communities to thrive in New Hampshire too, so that, you know, there aren't only a handful of good school districts where people feel like they can move for their kids, and that we want to take some of that pressure off everybody, so that we all feel like we have good resources for our kids in different communities, and we're not feeling pressured in any particular community to take that on.
Well, it's interesting because I was at the Blueprint for Bedford meeting about a month ago or so, and I listened to one resident talk about her concerns about people selling their homes and, you know, downsizing into someplace like the Village Green or the Mews, only to have their house purchased and having multiple children in the house, which increases the size of the schools. And she was saying, you know, how concerned she was about that. In that particular situation, I think we're okay, because not only would we get the taxes from the house that's sold to the family with the child, but we'd also have taxes coming in from the downsizing older couple, as long as they were buying in Bedford. So I think that affordability factor and availability factor is important in Bedford.
Yes, no, I think that's right. And, you know, these conversations are always going on, but, you know, to the extent we can stay ahead of the curve a little in our planning, I think it's really important. So there's a nexus with the state planning there too, obviously.
Right, and property values thrive in communities that value their schools, that have good public works and good services offered.
Yes, exactly. And all those things I think we really do have in Bedford. And so we need to figure out how we can manage that in the rest of the state as well without putting undue burden on any particular community. And it's with a property tax state the way we are, that's where we feel it when there are changes. So it's something we really need to examine.
So you've alluded, I've asked you different questions about how you feel the town council has prepared you for state government and things like that, but why did you decide to run at all? I mean, why not just be a town councilor and a soccer mom, the proverbial soccer mom?
In the rain on Saturday morning like I was this past weekend.
Exactly, freezing.
You know, I think maybe it sounds crazy, but I actually think it was because I'm on town council, because I feel like I have an opportunity. I've learned a tremendous amount serving on town council, and I can see these places where you know, challenges we face or struggles we face in town decisions. State decisions really impact too. If state funding continues to be pulled in certain areas and those costs roll down to our property taxes, that hurts us in terms of what we can manage in terms of our, you know, our public works, our schools. I've talked about roads and infrastructure. I joke when I'm campaigning, it's not the first exciting thing on everybody's list of topics to talk about, but it's near and dear to my
it
heart.
will be when their cars are falling into potholes or the
and
bridges
we spent a lot of time
fail.
talking about it, town council, and how do we, the sort of the plan for maintaining our roads, and we have state roads in Bedford, busy ones that are expanding, and what kind of voice do we have in that? What kind of input do we have at the state as our state roadways and bridges are impacted?
For instance, the 101 project right now is a state project.
Correct.
It's
And
not
New
a
Boston
local.
Road is a state road also, and that's sort of in between. They've done some maintenance, and I mean like a holding pattern until they can fully refinish it. So there's all those sorts of projects. There are certain small bridges that are, because they fall on state roads and impact environmental areas around them, they're impacted. So all those experiences, sitting on town council, I also sit as a liaison onto other commissions and boards.
Right.
Again, has been tremendously valuable in terms of having a holistic sense of some of the decision-making process in town. And so I wanted to take that experience, I guess, and leverage it to the state level.
What subcommittees are you on?
I'm currently on the Conservation Commission, the Historic District Commission, and the Energy Commission.
Okay.
I'm an alternate on the Energy Commission, but I like to go.
Full
every month.
disclosure.
Yes, full disclosure. But I like to go because I'm learning a ton about alternate energy opportunities, and it's a great group of people who are really trying to see what kind of options are out there as a town. And I have served on zoning in the past and Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, and so each councillor serves in a number of roles.
Are you assigned to those committees, or do you pick, or how does that
Both.
work?
You can express your preference, or if there's an area you have particular expertise in or would like to serve in, we try to accommodate that. We also try to rotate them, and also sometimes it depends on when they meet and conflicts with scheduling.
Right, whether or not people can actually be there.
Correct.
So in looking towards the State House, are there particular committees that you think you would want to serve on, or are you?
I want to serve where I feel like where I can be best used, and
Okay.
I know that as a first-year legislator, it's a little different in terms of what kind of priority or preference you might get. But
Right.
I think I would hopefully be useful on a committee looking at roads and infrastructure, with an energy related committee. And, those are areas that I care about and have some experience in now from town council. Obviously, schools are one of my issues I talk about as a priority. There are some
Right.
other people I know who are also running for office that have a lot of experience in the education field that would serve well on some of those
One or
committees.
two.
But yeah, one or two. So those are some of my priorities based on my experience the last few years.
And the campaign trail. What have you been doing?
It has been fantastic.
Okay.
It has been very fun. It has really been very positive fall so far, and I'm very appreciative of that. I've been knocking doors, as you know. We've been out there knocking doors, talking to neighbors around the town. I have been attending meet and greets, small house parties, getting to talk to different groups. I have been I've been very lucky to have friends and colleagues submit letters of support. So it's
I
really.
have certainly seen you at the transfer station.
I've been at the transfer station. How could I forget? In the rain again last weekend. So it's interesting too how each of those modes of campaigning, if you will, are very different in terms of what you can achieve with them. A meet and greet, you might only be with a few people, but you get to really talk with them and
In depth.
and
Right.
present some of your priorities. The transfer station, you don't get to talk to people maybe as much, but they know that you're out there and you really
Right.
are invested in the campaign and making an effort. And then door knocking is sometimes the most gratifying because it's amazing how often you realize you can find common ground on some of the issues that might not seem that way at first.
I have door knocked with you, Catherine.
Full disclosure.
Right, full disclosure. People watching this interview may say, wow, look at them talking to each other like they weren't just standing on my front doorstep singing each other's praises.
Right.
I've been impressed with your depth of knowledge. I have been impressed with the ease at which you're able to talk to people. I have also been impressed that you don't get flustered very easily, which
well, that's good news.
is not always something that people find, a particularly handy thing.
I don't always feel that way in my heart, but I appreciate that.
Well, I'll tell you, you've got a great poker face then because, I mean, we've seen a range of issues.
Yeah.
People talking about school choice.
Yep.
People talking about clean water, certainly.
Yep.
people talking about whether or not you can do anything personally to get bike paths put into Bedford.
Yep. Or fix their mailbox.
Yep, fixing their mailboxes, talking about whether or not you personally can be the deciding factor on the development of land on 101.
Yes, that's come up a lot lately.
Yeah, and I've watched you handle those situations with grace and just be able to provide information to people for them to maybe think about something from a point of view that they might not have thought about prior to. So
I appreciate that. Thank you,
Yeah,
Sue.
well, you know I'm strongly supporting your candidacy.
Well, as I say, it helps when I'm out with somebody who embodies or models all of those skills and characteristics as well as you do. So I'm learning a lot as I go.
Well, it's truly been my pleasure.
It's much more fun.
Yeah. Definitely. And as we've said many times, it seems like 6 years ago that we met 6 months ago.
That's right.
And I hope in my heart of hearts that you're successful at the polls on November 6th.
November 6th at the high school.
Where we don't have terribly much time left. So I know that people are going to want me to stop talking and to listen to you.
I don't know about that.
So I would love for you to look into that camera and give us an idea of why you think voters should vote for Rombeau on November 6th.
Okay, so I was thinking about this a lot the last few days because a gentleman at the transfer station on Saturday asked me and some other candidates, when I go into that voting booth on November 6th, the high school, what do you want me to remember about you? And I thought about it, there are a lot of things I hope that he'll remember, but the thing that I kept coming back to is I thought, I want him to think I show up. And that means a lot. That means a lot of different things. But it means that I have thrown myself into working in this community for the last few years. As I said to Sue, I've served on a number of committees. I'm on the town council, and even in ways smaller, Girl Scouts, the running group that I'm in my town.
Right.
All of those are pieces of me, and I am committed to them. And I think it gives me connections to people across the community. So when I'm running, it has not been on an ideological bent or any agenda that I'm necessarily trying to achieve. It's because I chose this community and I want to be involved in it. And I hope that that gentleman at the transfer station, I don't know how he'll vote, but I hope that he'll walk in and think, you know what, she's working for this town. She believes in this community. She listened to me when I asked questions. And we talked about different sides of an issue, and we talked about what are the possible solutions to a given problem. I think that's what I'm trying to do on town council now and in the committees I serve on, and that's what I hope someone will take into the voting booth with them on November 6th.
Well, I want to encourage people to make sure that they're at the polls. Bedford High School, 7 to 7 on the 6th of November.
We'll be there.
And I look forward, Catherine, to sharing the results with you that night.
Me too.
Thanks very much for coming
you,
in.
Sue.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.